Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a This Year in Perfume, and we are all the way up to 2003. And not only is this a This Year in Perfume, it is a ranked version of This Year in Perfume. So we are going to take 12 fragrances from my collection, and we are going to rank them. And so these are all came out in 2003. The idea, when I came out with the idea of This Year in Perfume, I thought it was just a neat way to kind of discuss a lot of fragrances at once for me to ramble, which I'm very well adept at rambling. And so this video is just going to be me talking about a lot of different fragrances from my collection. And I think it's just a neat way to kind of categorize and, you know, discuss different fragrances, if you will. I think it's an interesting way to just lump fragrances together the year they came out, because many fragrances are sort of a byproduct of the time that they were released. What was popular? What are they competing against? What else is going on? What molecules? What captives? What Givaudan, IFF, Symrise ingredients are these perfumers using? Right? That all makes the fragrances, when they come out in a particular year, I think it's a great way to sort of just talk about what was going on. So let's put ourselves, frame of mind, in 2003. So I just did a quick search, and I don't know how true this is, but top 10 movies from 2003. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Number 10. Number 9 is Dogville. I've never seen. Number 8 is Big Fish. I don't think I've ever seen that either. 7 is Kill Bill Volume 1. That is a fantastic movie. I think that might be one of Quentin Tarantino's best. An all-time classic. Number 6, Finding Nemo. That's also kind of a classic before Disney just went absolutely off the rails insane, in my opinion. Number 5, Memoirs of a Murder. Never seen it. Number 4, Mystic River. I don't think I've seen that. Number 3, Lost in Translation. I don't think I've seen that. I'm not a big movie guy, excuse me. Old Boy at number 2, and number 1 is The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. That is a good movie. I do like the Lord of the Rings series. In fact, I would like to read the books one of these days. Maybe when I have more time on my hands, that would be a cool sort of, what are those called, where they release a lot of books, but they're all in the same storyline, like a series, if you will. There's a name for it. I don't think it's a series, but maybe it'll come to me as soon as I click off on the video. So I'm sure someone will leave it in the comments. Okay, so let's talk about some events that happened in 2003. The Human Genome Project was founded in 2003. There was the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. That was a big one. And the final Concorde flight took place in 2003 as well, which is crazy to think about. So to my mind of thinking, 2003 is sort of where right now, because we're in 2023 as I'm making this video, 2003 is sort of the cutoff for vintage. Because I think about 20 years in previous being vintage. So we're right at that cusp of vintage fragrances, if you will, in my mind. What else happened in 2003? The invasion of Iraq, of course, that was a big one. Shock and awe campaign that was kind of televised worldwide. Bombs dropping on Iraq. And also in, I'm trying to think, in 2003, so I was that was the year that I graduated high school, 2003 as well. So that was a pivotal year for me. And what else are they saying? 100 years of Harley Davidson. The last old-style Volkswagen Beetle rolls off the production plant in Mexico. The Beetle just being made in Mexico just seems so wrong. Freedom fries. Americans renamed French fries to Freedom fries. The good old days. And so just to get back in state of mind of 2003. 2003 was a very fun year for me. So let's talk about my scent of the day, and then we're going to get into this countdown because it is late. And after this video, my plan is to go work out before I hit the hay. So, scent of the day is actually a vintage bottle of a Creed. And this is one of my, good thing I have cat-like reflexes. This is one of my favorite Creeds. Actually, if you go watch my ranked Creed video, you'll see just how much of a favorite Creed it is, where I ranked it. And so this is called Vanisia. And Vanisia, this is the old style bottle. The new style bottles are put into the, it's like the women's Creed bottles. If you've seen the women's, for some of their scents, they have a different design. if you look it up, you'll see it. It's the picture actually on Parfumo, but this was what it originally came out as. I think this is a late 90s or early 2000s batch, if I'm not mistaken. I got this from Enchanté, from Amouage at Enchanté. I also have a flacon. I love this stuff. That's about 12 years old, if memory serves. My flacon's about 12 years old. It is fantastic. And what's so amazing about this is Creed at its best. So this is 1987, okay? So this is Creed at its best because this is a blend of simplicity but brilliant materials. So it's bergamot in the top, Bulgarian rose in the heart, sandalwood in the base with ambergris and vanilla. And if you know that Creed sparkling sort of sandalwood, that very likable, very moist feeling sandalwood, very natural feeling, even though it may not be really natural. Maybe because this is older, there are some natural, there's some natural sandalwood in here, but even if it's synthetically created, they just did such a good job that it just feels so natural to me. And if you've smelled Shalimar, you'll definitely get this Shalimar-like feel in the fragrance. And it really feels like Creed tries to do Shalimar, but with the most high-class materials that they can. And I mean, just everything about the fragrance is high class. It is a classy fragrance, marketed towards women. I have no problem wearing this. I actually wore this to work today. This was my scent of the day at work, and it works brilliantly. It's just, yes, it's somewhat floral because of that Bulgarian rose note that's very prominent, but the vanilla in here is just, I know if you follow my channel, you have heard me talk about the fact that I think nobody does vanilla like Guerlain. Guerlain is the vanilla house for me, but I'm telling you, this puts up a fight. The vanilla in here is so good. It is not too sweet. It's deep. It's powdery. There's an oriental feel to it. The ambergris gives it the sparkle, the very creamy, soft, moist sandalwood that Creed uses. It's so beautiful. It's just a beautiful composition. And I don't know who made this. I mean, if Pierre Bourdon did this, well, even bravo, another feather in his cap. But I think it's absolutely brilliant. Vanisia, I'm going to do a full review of that one of these days. Man, I don't know what to say about it. I'll just get up here and just blabber, though, because it's so beautiful. It's hard to really pin this fragrance down, but I'll try my best to do a full review. So I am going to talk about some fragrances that I have decants of that I have not done videos on yet that are from 2003 that I want to do videos on. Two of them, honorable mentions, I don't have yet. Thank you, Tom, by the way, for sending me a decant of New Harlem. That is on the way, so I don't have it yet, but I will very soon, thanks to a subscriber, a friend. And I'll have a decant of New Harlem. That came out in 2003. That is a little bit like this New York breakfast feel, syrupy, and if you smelled Rochas Man, you'll get kind of an idea from the late 90s. I think it's the same perfumer, Maurice Roussel, as well. And the other one is honorary mention. I have a decant, but I can't find it. Is Kingdom by Alexander McQueen, and that's supposed to be a beautiful sort of floral type fragrance with fresh notes and stuff like that. And it's an amazing rose fragrance from what I remember. I think I've only smelled it once. I will do a video on that as soon as I can find my decant one of these days. Kingdom by Alexander McQueen is on my list. So let's talk about some that I did find the decants on. Sometimes finding these decants is an absolute pain, but this one is actually called Queer, and it's by the house of LT Piver. Now, LT Piver is a house that doesn't get very much talk, but this fragrance, I'm telling you, this is an amazing leather scent. I'm going to talk about it on the channel. Birch tar, honey, spices. There's a woody feel to this, but I don't know the woods used. Mandarin orange, bergamot, and orange. It feels like just an old school leather. There's something very vintage to this, even though it came out in 2003. I'm a big fan, and I will review this one of these days. It's been on the review list for over a year now. I don't know who sent me this decant, but whoever did, thank you. So Queer by LT Piver. So these are not ranked. These are just like honorary mentions, ones that I want to talk about. If I have a video on the channel and I have a decant, I put it in the ranked list, and you're going to see one of the decants shot straight to the top. So if you really know the history of the decants I've reviewed, you may be able to tell which one's my #1 scent already from 2003. A couple others that are still on the honorary mention list waiting to be discussed on Channel Ram. One is called Purple Label by Ralph Lauren. I love this stuff, actually. I really wish I would have bought a bottle of this when they were cheaper and I had a chance. Bottles are going for insane money. Actually, I think you may still be able to find a bottle of this. I think I thought it was discontinued, but I'm hearing that you can still potentially buy it. So I need to kind of look into that. I need to try to find a bottle one of these days. Even a partial would be cool. But it's blackberry, coriander, mandarin orange with sage, thyme, and tobacco flower, oak moss, suede, mahogany, and musk. And there's something that is very interesting about the way that the blackberry note, that purple blackberry note, sort of blends with this fresh suede feel. So, you know, at the time in the early 2000s, 2003, there were still some holdovers from the late 90s. I think about the tobacco flower used in something like the Dreamer, right? Something like that, this fresh sort of tobacco, but with suede and leather in the base and oak moss and woods. And I think this is a fantastic designer fragrance, very classy. I would love to have a bottle of this, but I'll review it from the decant one of these days. And thank you, Anuj at Enchante, for sending me this very generous decant. Okay, so next on the list is Cial Woman. And Cial Woman, this is not really my thing, but I thought it was a really good fragrance. If you're into fresh floral type scents, there's a beautiful violet leaf, gardenia, cyclamen, jasmine, water lily, rose, that kind of thing. Peach aldehydes with musk, sandalwood, amber, frankincense, and cedarwood. But the musk and woods and frankincense are really kind of underneath. The florals really take this very fresh floral explosion. Lucas Swizak created Cial Woman. I think he did a great job. It's just not the kind of thing I would personally like to wear. Have not reviewed that on the channel yet, but I think I did talk a little bit about it on a live stream. If you go watch my Amouage live streams, there is a point in time where I discussed Cial Woman. Next on the list is a decant Rachel sent me many, many moons ago that I've just been sitting on. Have not done a video on it yet. In 2003, Guerlain released L'Instante Guerlain for women. And then I think a couple years later, they released the EDT. So they first released the Eau de Parfum, from my understanding. And Maurice Roussel is the perfumer. And this is another one of those floral, so somewhat powdery and honey-like creations. There's musk and vanilla. Maurice Roussel loves using that very powdery musk that you tend to smell in many of his creations over and over again. Maurice Roussel definitely has a signature with that musk. And I'm not necessarily saying that someone can just smell this and go, oh, it's a Maurice Roussel. But I think if you know perfumers like calling card, if you will, if you know this is a Maurice Roussel, you'll go, okay, the musk in here is sort of reminding me of the way that he used musk in previous compositions. Very interesting creation. But again, it's sort of like an oriental floral, if that makes sense. But very well done. Just not my thing. I wouldn't want to wear this as a scent of the day. Maybe I'll come around to reviewing it one of these days. And then, one that I am very excited to review on the channel, because I think it's an amazing rose. Maybe one of the best rose fragrances not in my collection. This is called Rose Tanate. And it used to be Une Rose. So in 2021, Frederic Malle changed it from Une Rose to Rose Tanate. So I will review this one of these days. It's a Edward Fleischier creation, and it is fantastic. It's like a deep, dark, it's almost like a rose to go out, at night. Like, this is a sensual rose. And it's cut with things like truffle, patchouli, vetiver. There's just this very sexual, it's like, I'm going to be sexy tonight, right? That's what this rose feels like. I'm going to be sexy and go out and go have a good time. Night on the town. But it does have sort of a late night feel. I think it's, I think this might be a little much for office or something like that, but it's a brilliant creation. I really like Edward Fleischier's work. So Rose Tanate from 2003. Of course, these are all 2003. Okay, so those were the samples. Those are the ones that I would like to talk about on the channel. One sample is being held back because it's actually on the list because I have reviewed it. And it was one Rich Mitch sent me from way back when. So let's get started. This is going to be a top 12, okay? So number 12 on the list is a fragrance that I bought because I got it for $8 at Ross. And it's from the house of Kenneth Cole, and it's called Black. Now, this comes in at number 12 on the list, and the reason it comes in at number 12 is not because it's a bad fragrance, because I actually don't think this is a bad fragrance. I think this is a pretty good creation for what it is. Kenneth Cole Black is sort of like this fresh, citrusy, slightly floral, but very late 90s, early 2000s, like freshness that you get for men, right? I think there's a lot of musk in here. There's some violet leaf, which I actually really like. It adds this ozonic quality. But there's these green touches. There's some frankincense in here. There's spices. There's florals. There's a lotus flower note in here. I think for something that if you sprayed on somebody and didn't tell them what it was, they would say, oh, kind of generic, you know, early 2000s blend, right? It might come across as slightly designer to noses who are sniffing nothing but niche nowadays, or vintages or stuff like that. But for a, you know, boring designer, if you will, this has some hallways, this has some cuts, this has some turns, and it does sort of take you for a ride. I don't think it's as bad of a fragrance as some people make it out to be, and I don't think it's as good of a fragrance as other people make it out to be, but I do think it's a good perfume for what it is. And, you know, for $8, I couldn't say no to review on the channel. I think it would be cool to do one day. So that's Kenneth Cole Black, and that's created by Harry Fremont, who also created Purple Label. I think Purple Label is a much better creation by Harry Fremont than Black, personally. But yes, he is a perfumer who does not get his dues. He's created some amazing stuff. Okay, next on the list, we are going to the house of Mauboussin. And this is a house that I really do not have very much from them. This particular one is called Mauboussin Homme, okay? Now, if you look, it's interesting, because if you actually look on the pictures, some of these, the juice looks purple. Mine looks green. But it's an Alberto Morillas creation, and Mauboussin Homme is sort of this sweet, spicy scent that came out, obviously 2003. I don't know why I keep saying that, but you know what this feels like? It feels like a little more grown-up version of this. So I hate this scent. Le Male is one of my most despised fragrances. I think it's juvenile. It's way, way too sweet for me. Every time I spray it, I'm like, oh my God, what a mistake I made. It is just so, it's schoolboy is really what it is. That's made for teenagers who are excited to get some, you know, arm hair under the, you know, some hair under their arms, right? Or in other places on their body. It just feels very juvenile to me. That sweetness comes across as childish. And I'm sorry if you like this fragrance, but I will review this one of these days. It probably will not be a good review. It's funny because some people are so accustomed, I think, to good reviews that if you ever say anything bad about it, they're like, oh, well, is your decant, is it tarnished? Or, you know, is there something wrong with your nose? They're just so not used to hearing somebody say anything but the most glowing reviews nowadays, right? And so it's interesting doing these honest reviews, or what I, you know, my honest opinion. Some people get offended by them, but I have to kind of stay true to the fact that a review should be sometimes good, sometimes meh, and sometimes bad. You know, everything can't be great. And so for me, this is going to be on the bad side. I am not a fan of Le Male. Okay, but I do like this a little bit more. I think that even though it is sweet, it doesn't have the just absolute disgusting sweetness that Le Male has. And so I think it's a little bit more grown up, but I think if you want even the more grown up version of this, go for something like a Scada Casual Friday, for example. There's a lavender note in here. It's the lavender and bourbon vanilla combo that really reminds you of Le Male, but there are other things in here as well. There's cinnamon, sage, bergamot, rosemary. So the rosemary adds a little bit of that old school vintage masculine feel, patchouli, and then there's also musk and sandalwood in the base. So I'll review this one of these days. I think for a cheapie, if you can get this for a good price, for a cheap price, I don't think it's a bad pickup at all. Mauboussin Homme at number 11. Number 10. Number 10 is a recently discontinued fragrance that I think is underrated. And even in this list, I had to put it here because we're getting up to some big hitters and heavy bangers. But I think that this is an amazing designer. When I picked this up, I got this 100 ml for like $22 or something. And I mean, I'm so glad I have it now that it's discontinued. But this is from Annick Menardo is the perfumer, and the house is Azzaro, and this is called Visit for Men. So Visit for Men is a woody, spicy creation. Actually, if you watched my review on Gucci Rush for Men, okay, there are some similarities to Gucci Rush. There are some differences as well. I'll review this one of these days, but this is cardamom, nutmeg, pink pepper, frankincense, they say ambergris, with musk, gaiac wood, and blue Lebanon cedar. And if you like these sort of dry, woody, you know, incensey type fragrances, you know, this does smell designer, but it's an Anique Menardo, and I really feel like Anique Menardo has a way with cheaper creations. Some of her fragrances, when they were sold at retail or discounters or whatever it was, you know, you could find them for very, very cheap. Think of things like Pour Homme by Boucheron and stuff like that. D Squared Potion before it got discontinued, and now it's, you know, hundreds, but before it was in the $20 rack. Same thing for Visit. I got this for 22 bucks or something like that. It was definitely under 30. And for 100 ml of this quality juice, very happy with that. Very, very happy with that. So Azzaro Visit comes in at number 10. Number 9. Number 9 is a very interesting creation because it is a tuberose fragrance. And yes, so this is a pretty complex fragrance for a designer. So the house is called Richard James, and the fragrance is called Seville Row. And what's interesting about Seville Row is that, so Seville Row is sort of green, slightly fresh when it opens because it has this ginger and green tea combination. And there's also all of these other sort of green notes floating around. So there's rosemary, which makes it feel slightly oily. There's basil, which adds that herbal aspect. There's a lot of bergamot in the opening, very sprightly bergamot. But very quickly you realize this floral aspect is coming forward. And it's a tuberose fragrance. This is a masculine tuberose fragrance, very unlike what you're used to smelling in tuberose, right? So if you want to smell a tuberose fragrance that goes in a different direction than something like Carnal Flower, you know, there are a little bit of a milky aspect to this. There's a little bit of a camphoraceous aspect to it. But really, I think they did the tuberose very well. They mixed it with things like lavender and other floral notes like rose, lily of the valley. There's spices with cardamom. There's tobacco in the base. There's sandalwood in the base. There's patchouli in the base. There's oak moss, suede, and it does go slightly leathery as well into the dry down. But it's very classy. You know, this is one of those fragrances that you would wear with a suit. Same thing I would say for something like Purple Label. But this is one of those fragrances that Seville Row is actually named after the row of tailors in New York City, if I'm not mistaken. And Richard James, I think, was one of those high-end tailor houses. You couldn't go to Richard James and just pick a suit off the rack and buy it. You went, the tailor measured you and made you a suit, right? It was that level of suit buying. And they made this fragrance for men like that, right? So think about that when you're thinking about Seville Row. Very classy fragrance. Very underrated, too. Yves Cesar created this, who also created the original Tom Ford for Men, which I love and I'll review and you'll hear about in the 2007, this year in Perfume. But Seville Row is amazing. Comes in at number 9. I think on anybody's list it could have been higher, but I've got some big bangers coming up. So number 8. Now this is one of the toughest This is probably the toughest one I had to place because for me, I think that this is out and out one of the best musk fragrances I've discovered within the last year or two. Okay, just new discoveries for me. Somebody sent me this as a gift. Someone sent me a ton of Serge Lutens. Almost all my Serge Lutens were like gifted to me. Not almost all of them, but a good portion was gifted to me. You can go check out my Serge Lutens unboxing video I did. Someone who worked for one of the Serge Lutens, let's say he worked for an arm of Serge Lutens, if you will, or a distributor of Serge. And he wanted to, he's been in the industry forever, 40 years, and he wanted to send me some of the ones that I do not have in the collection. It was very, very kind of him. He reached out on his own. And this is one of the ones he sent me. This is called Clair de Musc. And Clair de Musc, I have to tell you, this is a Christopher Sheldrake creation. And everyone likes to talk about the animalic musk, right? They like to talk about Musk Kublai Khan. However, I will tell you that Clair de Musc to me is just as interesting as Musk Kublai Khan. And what's interesting about it is a clean musk. So if you want a well-done, clean musk, I really think Christopher Sheldrake is one of the most underrated perfumers on earth. I think that his work is overlooked by many. This is such a brilliant musk. I mean, if I could just describe this fluffiness that I'm smelling, it's almost like making a souffle. Have you ever like made a souffle or watched a souffle being made? And you know, the egg and they put it in the bowl, right? They almost treat it like I think it goes straight into the oven, right? So they put the bowl that you're going to eat it out of straight into the oven a lot of times, and watch the souffle rise and almost like come up like a mushroom, right? And it's very fluffy and airy and powdery, slightly floral, very slightly animalic, very slightly animalic. Just a little bit, the tiniest bit. I mean, if you could make the tiniest bit, and think about it, a musk that's very clean, but there's just something creeping underneath, right? That is Clair de Musc. And Clair de Musc, you know, some people compare it to Kiehl's Original Musk, blend number 1, is what it's called now. I think it just used to be called Original Musk. And I think there may be something to that comparison. But this is such an interesting, for a fragrance that has one note, musk. There's so many facets to this. Like I said, that rising, that almost yeast rising aspect, if you will. And the floral aspect, even though there's no floral notes listed, the musk smells florally. It smells very clean and florally. There's like rose. Imagine getting like hints of things like rose, maybe some like ylang-ylang or something like that. And this little bit of growl underneath, but just the tiniest bit. It's a very clean and fresh musk overall. But it never, what I really like about this is sometimes you smell a musk and it smells like laundry musks, right? So it smells like a scent you would smell when you take your clothes out of the washing machine, like a modern day Tide or Downy or Bounty or something like that. This never goes that route at all. It stays very classy, and I have no clue how Christopher Sheldrake did this. No clue. This is one of those just mysteries of perfumery to me, but this is an amazing musk. Like if you're someone who is loving musk at the moment and you want to smell a musk fragrance that I would consider to be one of the best quote-unquote clean musks, go for Clair de Musc. If you want the dirty musk, go for Musk Kublai Khan. But it's crazy because Musk Kublai Khan actually puts me off. As much as I really love animalics, there's something about Musk Kublai Khan that I struggle with. This one, I love it. I absolutely love Clair de Musc. It is, it's so good. So that's why I say I have a hard time putting it number 8, but I think there's some other stuff that obviously I've ranked them higher, so I do enjoy wearing them more. And these are just my opinion. Never forget that. I'm not saying number 1's better than number 10 or anything like that. Just my opinion on how I would rank them right now. And that can change tomorrow too. That's the other thing. This is a hobby, and you know, tastes do change. So Serge Lutens Clair de Musc at number 8. Number 7. Number 7 is a discontinued Rochas fragrance. I do not have the cap, but it is Rochas Lui. There's a couple Louis floating around out there, so be careful. I think Guerlain has a Louis. There's a few others even, maybe. But this is Rochas Lui. And Rochas Lui is a very interesting take on a woody fragrance. It's a designer, obviously, but it was created by Michel Almerac, who I have a lot of time for and respect for his work. And Rochas Lui, to me, has little hints of Abbey Rouge in there, okay? And the reason, you know what it's like? It's like an Abbey Rouge with a very sort of, how can I say it? Almost like a lemon cake feel. There's almost like a neroli, so there's a little bit of freshness as well. It's almost like a fresh, woody, spicy creation, if that makes sense. But there's something about the way the vanilla, the patchouli, the amber, and the base just give off this slight Abbey Rouge feel, you know, and what's missing from here is the carnation. I think there's a big carnation note in Abbey Rouge. And obviously, right, I mean, if you rank it, Abbey Rouge to me is one of the greatest masculines of all time, right? But there's just something about this that just gives off, you know, it could also be like that lemon in the top. Because Abbey Rouge came out in 1965, and there's this sort of bitter orange lemon feel in the top to Abbey Rouge. And I think what ends up happening and where these sort of distinguish themselves is that lemon and think about the Brazilian rosewood, the lemon, the oranges, the lime, all the zesty notes in Abbey Rouge, and how they blend with the rose and the carnation, and they sort of come down, and late into the dry down, Abbey Rouge turns into this leather, right? With that vanilla Guerlain and all that stuff, right? Some people say it's like a masculine version of Shalimar, and I understand what they're saying, but I adore that scent DNA. So obviously I would like Rochas Lui, but the difference is there is no leather dry down in this. This goes straight woody, spicy. It brings in woods like cedar wood and sycamore wood. There's a sweet grass note, which is interesting, and vanilla and patchouli and amber in the base. But that sort of fresh top, the con, if you will, with Rochas Lui, is there's some people that say that neroli and lemon top give off a little bit of a floor cleaner vibe in this scent. And I know what they mean. Doesn't bother me at all, though, because I think Michel Almerac and Amandine Clerc-Marie is the other person who worked with Michel Almerac on this scent. I think they did a very good job, you know, for a designer. I think they did a good job blending everything together. So, you know, I guess if you're super picky, maybe that floor cleaner lemon type smell comes out more on your skin, but every time I've worn it, I've never had a problem with it. So I'll review it one of these days. It's discontinued and extremely hard to find. So I'm very glad to have this. I got the big boy bottle too, the 100 ml. So very glad to have that. So that is on the to review list one of these days, as are actually a lot of these that we're coming up on are on the to review list. Actually, I think everything we've talked about today is on the review list. I haven't reviewed a single full bottle here yet, which is crazy to think about. Even my scent of the day, Creed Venezia, is on the to review list. So there you have it. But Rochas Lui this is the time of year too, fall, for me to start craving scents like this. So I'll probably wear it very soon. Okay, so next on the list we have a barbershop scent, and one of the greatest barbershop scents of all time, 2003. This is Tom Ford at the helm as creative director from Yves Saint Laurent. This is Rive Gauche. Rive Gauche Pour Homme. And Rive Gauche Pour Homme is a creation by Jacques Cavalier, and this is things like star anise, rosemary, lavender, clove, there's spices, there's some geranium, which I think adds just a brilliant, slight floral. Geranium can sometimes come across as slightly rosy, slightly spicy, slightly green, and Gaillac wood, patchouli, and vetiver, okay? And so this is a proper old school fougere, a proper barbershop fougere. And, you know, whenever you hear the word barbershop, a lot of times it comes to imply like the shaving foam of being in a barbershop, right? This is literally in like a shaving foam jar. So you get a lot of shaving foam, fresh feel. Some people say that this smells like, you know, a father, a dad, a role model, something like that, right? There is something spicy, woody about it, but it's a fougere through and through. It's a proper woody, masculine fougere with lavender, geranium, and I love that star anise note at the top. You know, at the time, Jacques Cavalier was playing with anise a lot. He used it in Opium Pour Homme as well for the same house, for YSL. There's a beautiful anise note in that as well, and he used it here to perfection. This is like Hall of Fame barbershop scent. I mean, you know, this is one of those that, especially in the tin can, this was recreated in 2011 and put into the square bottles that the cap sits off center, like the YSL M7 Oud Absolu bottle I've showed on my channel before. But this one goes for big money, and I don't think it's really worth it. Don't pay like $200-300 for this. I don't think it's worth it. If you can find it for a respectable price, 100, you know, this is the 75 mil, I think. Yeah, this is 75 mil. So if you could find this for like 150, that's not bad, you know. But people think they're sitting on like a retirement fund here. They want $500 a bottle. Don't do that. But it is a very, very good scent. It barely beat out Rochas Lui, but Rive, Gauche, Pour Homme by YSL comes in at number 6. Number 5 is a Gucci. So we go from YSL to Gucci, and this is Gucci Pour Homme, the original from 2003. Well, not the true original. The true original Gucci Pour Homme came out in the 70s. So this is Gucci Pour Homme from 2003, obviously, or else it would not be on the list. And this is a creation by Michel Almerac, and so this DNA is amazing. And you know what? If it didn't turn into something so ubiquitous, like if you did this video in 2003, this would be number 1, I think, because there was almost nothing like it at the time. I get some similarities to Comme des Garçons 2 Man, which came out 1 year later. I actually think I like 2 Man a little better. Don't crucify me. I still think this is an amazing scent. But since then, Bentley's come out with Bentley for Men Absolute, which smells very, very similar to me, and the same perfumer. Michel Almerac has launched his own line called Parle-moi de Parfum, and he did Papyrus Oud, which smells very similar to this with a quote-unquote oud note in it. This apparently doesn't have any oud, as they say. And so this DNA has just been done to death since then because it was so successful and because Gucci and Scannon discontinued this. But it definitely has that woody, spicy, smoky. There's a papyrus note in here. So just imagine like burning paper. Imagine like burning an old scroll in like an Egyptian library, right? There is this sort of just incense burning all around you. You're in like a vintage Egyptian movie. You're the pharaoh. It just feels that way, right? There's that feel about it. The smoke, it just feels like people just burn incense everywhere you walk. And the woods are beautiful in here. There is a little bit of lavender, a little bit of basil. So there are some other things going on. There's tarragon, one of my top secret ingredients, pimento, but this is mostly woods, incense, things like papyrus, burning paper, frankincense. It's just a great, just an amazing creation. So before this is gone, I will review this on the channel. So Gucci Pour Homme from 2003, can't help myself, comes in at number 5. Number 4. Number 4 is another discontinued fragrance, and it's crazy because Versace discontinued this, and they continued the Eau Fresh or whatever it's called version of this, but this is the best version of all of the flankers that came out of this fragrance. This is Versace Man at number 4. And I know some of you are like, what? Versace Man above Gucci Pour Homme? But I have just come to, I think this is now, because Gucci Pour Homme is so ubiquitous, that DNA is so ubiquitous, I think this is actually more unique now than Gucci Pour Homme, if you will. And the reason is, and actually I've got a tester, so I have the notes here on the back. Let me just make a note of the blotter here. Versace Man. So what I really like about this fragrance, and I need to review it because it is discontinued. You guys know I love reviewing discontinued scents. Yeah, so the Angelica note in the top is absolutely brilliant. And Angelica, because of things like Royal Oud, very quickly became one of my favorite green notes. And the Angelica note in here, this is done by a perfumer named Domitille Michelin Berthier. No clue who that is. But I can tell you they did something special here. I think they had a big winner on their hands. You used to be able to get this for 30 or 40 bucks at discounters for 100 mil. Now, again, they're selling for hundreds on eBay. If you can, you know, who knows who if people are paying that, but that's what everyone's trying to get. But I think if you can find this for under 100 bucks, go for it. Angelica, black pepper, bergamot, and neroli. And so what's so interesting about this fragrance is the way that they used the saffron in the mid. So there's saffron, which at the time, in 2003, it wasn't the Middle Eastern push yet, right? There weren't just rose, oud, saffrons. They weren't just littering the landscape, right? So this saffron cardamom combination in the heart, whenever Versace put out Versace Pour Homme or Versace Man Oud Noir, they kind of kept a little bit of that saffron cardamom and worked off of it and went in a different direction with Oud Noir, right? But with this one, what ends up happening, and the reason why I love this fragrance so much, is a beautiful ambery labdanum. There's some cashmere woods in here, and tobacco comes out. And the tobacco in the base is to die for. I think this is a brilliant masculine scent. And I'm really sad Euro Italia discontinued this. They call it living tobacco leaves in the base is what it actually says on the tester, if you can see that. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Maybe cover my face. There you go. Living tobacco leaves. Look at that. Bergamot from Calabria, Angelica flowers, black pepper, saffron, cardamom, amber, living tobacco leaves, labdanum cysts, which sounds like a medical condition, cashmere woods. But I think it's a fantastic, fantastic designer, and I am bummed they discontinued this. I think Versace made a huge mistake discontinuing Versace Man, personally. I really like what that has done for a designer. I'm a big fan of Versace Man. I think that's a good one. Back when they used to know how to make a designer scent. Okay, 3 to come. So number 3 on the list is an Amouage, and you guys may be shocked that this is this high, but I am a huge, huge fan of this scent. As far as like fresh lavender mixed with things like incense go, this is one of my all-time favorites. It's CL Man. This is also on the to review list. Look at the dent I've put in this. The reason is I like to wear this in the heat. So, you know, even now it's November the 13th here in Texas. November 14th, excuse me. And it's still in the 60s. Like, I didn't even need a jacket today. I just go like this to out and to work. And so for me, you know, I like to wear this when it's actually 70s and 80s even, but it's still warm enough. Maybe I'll get a wear of this in and do a full review, because it is a fantastic fragrance. It's discontinued. The people at Amouage, who I think they've completely lost their minds at Amouage, but they discontinued this. This is lavender, bergamot, rose, lily of the valley, jasmine, cardamom, cinnamon, nutmeg, and peach, with sandalwood, frankincense, cedar, vetiver, and patchouli. And you know what's crazy is the way that the lavender in the top, which does have a little bit of a laundered freshness to it. It's a little bit of a herbal lavender, but I don't mind, because it's joined by so many of these other just very, you know, this is an Amouage unlike any other Amouage. I think it really stands out, even from the path of what Christopher Chong ended up coming and doing. They stopped making these type of fragrances because this still has some of those old school florals that you find in things like Gold Man and Silver Man. There's rose, lily of the valley, and jasmine. For a masculine scent, there's a lot of florals here, and they're done. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's a little bit of ylang ylang in here that's not listed. There's lily of the valley as well, and spices. So you get the cardamom, nutmeg, cinnamon. But what's crazy is this candied peach that comes in. And it's a beautiful touch. I mean, it reminds you of old school fragrances, right? There's a reminder of things like Mitsuko and stuff like that. But it doesn't go down that route. It stays smelling unique and different, like an Amouage, because of the frankincense. And the incense here that ends up wisping in with that fresh lavender. They tried to do sort of the way they tried to market this is imagine like being a spring shower, right? You're by the lake, there's lightning, there's a quick rainfall, and then it clears up, right? Just imagine that sort of spring shower feel with like a thunderstorm, lightning and thunder and stuff like that. And it's actually not a bad representation of what the scent stands for. I've come to really associate it with spring. And so I'll review this one of these days, but it is, I think Ciel is, again, I think it's another mistake Amouage made discontinuing this. And number 2 and number 1 are going to be a surprise for folks. So buckle in. Number 2, this fragrance has really grown on me. Actually, this perfumer's work in general has grown on me. At first, I didn't think I liked his work at all. I thought that it just wasn't for me. Like, his style is just not for me. But the more I wore it and the more my nose adapted, the more my taste adapted, I really came to appreciate his work. This is Jean-Claude Elena. This is L'Eau d'Hiver by Frederic Malle. And at number 2, this is a pre-Estée Lauder bottle, okay? And this is a sort of homage, if you will, to a great Guerlain from the past. In the early 1900s, Guerlain put out a fragrance called Après L'Onde. And Après L'Onde inspired Jean-Claude Elena. Maybe it inspired Jean-Paul Guerlain as well. But it inspired Jean-Claude Elena to create this modern niche version of Après L'Onde, if you will, called L'Eau d'Hiver. And basically, he adopted the interplay of this anisic aldehyde called, it's like an almond, vanillic-like smell. There's some heliotrope in here, heliotropin, and orris, which they say he transferred to present age by adding transparency and airiness to the scent. And this is a very airy fragrance. There's a little bit of Hédione, which smells a bit of jasmine, but there's one of Jean-Claude Elena's secret notes in here, hawthorn. He loves using hawthorn. He used it in Hermès Cuir d'Ange, angel leather, and that gave it the angel white feel to the imagine like a white bag, high-end leather bag. Yesterday we were talking about sort of cross Saffiano leather, where they cross the leather, right? And they do it with only high-end bags because it's a very, or leather goods, because it's a very expensive process to do, right? Someone was mentioning a Balenciaga coat. I think Duncan was mentioning a Balenciaga coat that has that cross-hatching pattern, 25 grand, right? That kind of thing. But Jean-Claude Elena loves using hawthorn because it adds this white feel to it. And here, it just adds, you know, with that anisic, almondy, the heliotrope is very powdery, almondy, but also very, you know, spongy, if you will. And the iris is out of this world, so powdery, and it just adds this luxury plushness to it. Even though this is not usually something I would love, I think this has grown on me. I'm really, really, really digging this fragrance. I think it would smell just absolutely stunning on a woman. And but I like to wear it as well. So L'Eau d'Hiver comes in at number 2. Number 1 is a sample, believe it or not, but I have a review on the channel. So this is thanks to Rich Mitch. He sent me this sample years ago, I believe. And this is called Fumerie Turk by Serge Lutens at number 1. It's our number 1 spot. Fumerie Turk, in my review, I said it's like a kaleidoscope of things that hit your nose. Everyone talks about the fact that it's a tobacco. It is a tobacco. It's also a honey tobacco, one of my favorite type notes. But it's a honey tobacco with a candied rose, patchouli, even maybe a little bit of leather. There's like a styrax leather note. There's some berries in here. There's red currants and juniper berries, according to Fragrantica, and honey. And, you know, I think that this really, Christopher Sheldrake, you know, just like just like sort of swirling smoke, you know, sometimes different parts of the swirl hit you. This thing is like a kaleidoscope. These different notes just sort of swirl like smoke, and they just hit your nose at different times. I think this is one of the best tobacco fragrances not in my collection. I would love a bottle of Fumerie Turk. One of these days, maybe I'll hunt it down. I'll find a bottle, but I think it's just a brilliant tobacco scent with many other things going on. The patchouli in here, that leathery suede-like dry down, the honey, and that candied rose that really comes forward. Just fantastic. So that's my top 12 countdown from 2003 from my collection. Appreciate everybody watching, commenting, all the stuff you guys do. Let me know what your favorites are from 2012. Obviously, I don't have everything. I left out stuff like Mont Blanc Individual, one of the most popular fragrances from 2003. I don't have it in my collection, so I'm not able to feature everything, obviously, but if there are some that have not made the list, I would love to know which ones are your favorites. So thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.